I think we all know that the impact side is growing. So there's more and more people who want to do more in this direction, want to allocate more or all of their money into impact-minded investments.
Techsauce Global, sparking innovative thoughts. Now, when you talk about investing in the world today, a lot of people think about gaining profits. But what about contributing to your community and the rest of the world? In our episode of Techsauce Global Podcast, we're going to take a look at impact investing. I'm Choworat Yongjirar Noner-Poupé, the global content editor of Techsauce Media. And today, I'm very happy indeed to talk with someone who represents an organization that has been at the forefront of impact investment, which looks for impact-first investment around the world with the aim of eliminating absolute poverty. He is Gerald Weigl. I hope I said that right. The director of elea Foundation for Ethics and Globalization. Hello.
Hi. Very great to meet you, and it's a pleasure to actually be here. Thanks for the invitation, Poupé.
Yeah.
I'm really excited to chat about that.
Thank you so much, and I'm so sorry if I mispronounced your name.
It's fine. It's German. I know it's a tough language.
Yeah. Okay. So before we start, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I'm Gerald Weigl. That would be the German version. As you already said, I work with elea, and I basically come from a background in finance. Then I worked in consulting for a while. So I worked with Boston Consulting Group, and then I got intrigued about this whole idea about using finance for good and getting more out of finance than just the return side. And I looked into the space a bit, and I stumbled across elea, which, as you said, is really at the forefront of the sector in a way that really strongly is on the impact side, but on the other hand, still uses the commercial potential to address problems around the world. I'm since almost 5 years now with elea. I work here on our investment side, so really looking at a lot of different investment opportunities. I focus quite a bit on Africa, also then Southeast Asia. So I've actually looked into Thailand quite a bit, and also Indonesia, and work a lot on our agriculture side, digital side as well. I'm quite excited to talk about all of that.
Yeah, I mean, that's interesting because you don't hear a lot about people. I'm sure there are a lot of you out there, but you don't hear a lot about people, jumping from, the regular kind of traditional job to that of, an organization such as elea. Can you tell us a little bit about, that journey? Was it difficult, or was it like natural?
It was definitely not natural. I mean, it's a process in terms of I guess also growing up, maturing, thinking what you want in life. And I think there's many people who, as you said, who put. I mean, there's many people who actually do it. There's many people who actually want to do it. But then it's also a question of opportunities. The space is also not huge. But for me, it was really. Working with BCG, which I learned a lot, which I appreciated very, very much. But I was looking for more in my life in terms of more impact for the work that I'm doing, or more like purpose, so that I know why I'm getting up every day and have a new sense of motivation. And that was then a process of like looking, exploring what options are out there, and then as usual applying, and then at some point it worked out. But it's it's a step, it's a change, but
I think
really love it.
I'm asking this because I'm sure a lot of people who choose to listen to this episode are probably interested and maybe have that kind of thought as well for their own career. You talked a little bit of elea, but can you tell us a little bit more about your operations and what you're doing now?
Yeah, sure. So we are an investment organization based structured as a foundation because we are in the philanthropic impact investing space. That means when we invest, we look at two main things, and the first one is really the impact side, and that's the main priority. So it's really an impact first lens where we look at opportunities that harness the commercial way in fighting poverty. So it must be companies, ventures that have solutions that with their business model then also address people living in absolute poverty and getting them a better life. So that's the first thing that we actually look at. And then on the commercial side, we really make sure that all the solutions that we actually invest in are commercially viable or will be, and ideally and are worth an investment. And when we say worth an investment, it's maybe not necessarily the VC lens, but we still think of, okay, how can we exit out of that? At what value we might think that might come, and that's how we basically think of it. But again, with the impact first side, that we really want to make sure that the impact is strong. We do that in three different topics. So we, on the one hand, focus on employable skill building. Those are ventures that provide people with the skills that they need to succeed in the job market. And one example that I have there is Digital Divide Data in Kenya. Well, they also work in Laos, actually. And they are basically an organization that provides basic IT services to their clients around the world. And to do that, they hire people locally in Kenya, for instance, but also in Laos, that are underprivileged, wouldn't have a chance to actually get an IT job. So they make sure that those people, they actually test them. They make sure that they have the aptitude. And then they employ them, they give them training on the job. And then after like three or more years, they are actually also able to go to university. And for those people, then it's a real first stepping stone for like a further IT career. And the great thing about that is that it really goes hand in hand with the business side, because it's not only that Digital Divide Data just gives them this job for like because it's just nice. It's because they also are looking to provide those services to their clients. So it goes hand in hand with the business side. The company can actually grow then, and that's then exactly solutions that we are looking for. And that's one of our sectors, which is employable skill building. We also work in last mile distribution, getting the things like goods into remote villages. It can be impactful goods, important things that people there need. Otherwise, they really need to go always to like the larger markets in the next city. They actually travel a lot of time. They also spend more. So that's an important other topic that we work with. And one great example there is Copia, that's in our portfolio in Kenya as well. That then basically is called the Amazon of Africa. So really works with e-commerce. It's an adjusted e-commerce model, but that's the very basic thought about it. And then the last topic that we work is agriculture, where one of the examples is Recult, which I think we anyway will probably talk a bit more later, since it's also based in Thailand.
Yeah, for sure.
And yeah, that's one of the other topics that we have.
You know, from what you've talked about, definitely, I think I'm gaining more insight into impact investing. But for those who are, you could say, like entrepreneurs or people who are corporate, you know, on the corporate side, or people who are not really familiar with impact investing, can you explain in a very concise way, like as in what it is?
Yeah, I think that the most helpful way is maybe not to think of it very different from other early stage venture investing. So I would take the analogy of venture capital, where you look at young companies that want to actually grow and are looking for equity funding, or also in some cases also loans, or on the impact side also grants. And we look at that with a very similar lens. We look at the business model, we look at all of those things that a VC would actually also look at, and also at the team, obviously. So as we all know, it's not, it could be a great business, but if the founders are not the right people, then it's not going to go anywhere.
Well, that's about this. Yeah.
And then
it's kind of universal.
Yeah, and then the main difference is really that in addition to all of that, we look at the impact. We look at the impact side, which means we really try to understand, or we really understand, and also how the business model creates impact for the people, for their like beneficiaries, for their target group. So again, people living in those remote villages, how do they benefit from working with this company, or like being a client or being employed, whatever it is. And that's then what we base our decision on, again, on like the impact side first, that we are convinced that that's something that's actually good, that makes sense. And then we look at all the other commercial things as well, but so with a different return expectation.
It's very thorough. I think it's very like taking a look at all sides of the investment. It's not just like a thing that, it's just you could say it's a decision that takes a short time. I'm sure it does. No. It takes purpose.
Our due didiligence takes slightly longer than a VC one, and that's also why we in the moment we have 30 investments, which is 30 active investments. But that's why we in the moment don't have hundreds yet. But we are getting there.
But So then of course comes the question as to what are the challenges then that you've met in impact investment? Because some people might think, hey, does it mean lower returns when compared to traditional investing?
Yep.
What?
I think that depends a bit on where you're looking at. I think one of the challenges is really you need to be clear where you are positioned. So there is the impact investment space is actually big in terms of how much impact first you are. So there's the real like the aid organizations, which to some extent are impact investment as well, but that's really purely grant giving. There's not necessarily an entrepreneurial model behind. And then you can go to the more ESG filtering like funds that are basically doing regular investments, plus they look at ESG criteria, which basically almost all of the funds now do. And then it depends on where you are there on this spectrum, how much return you can actually expect. So obviously, if you're just giving grants, then the return is well that the grant is then then gone. And then there's a trade-off in some or in most cases that you can if you're really looking for very deep impact at an early stage with people living, as is in our case, with people living in absolute poverty. The problem is just that yes, every investment that we actually do, we expect that it's going to be positive, but given that the risk is there, the same as in venture, you have to expect that some of them actually fail. And then the problem is that those that make it large, they don't necessarily get the same outsized return as like the big tech investments. So that's when overall, if you look at the portfolio, you probably cannot expect that you will have like 1, 2, 3 large investments that give you 100 or like even more X, and that really just return all of your fund. And that's a bit where we are looking at exits now, actually, where we think we can get significant returns, but for us that's maybe 3 to 5x, and those have to carry the whole portfolio to actually some extent also to the ones that are maybe that don't get us as much return, or that only get the money back. And that's a bit the challenge. But you can obviously steer that in terms of how much impact first you want to be. And I guess if you look at some sectors that are more VC prone, like climate tech, for instance, there I think you can do impact and not necessarily sacrifice on the return. But it also depends a bit on like what topic you're actually working in. And I think that's a bit where there is probably things that also work with people in absolute poverty that get those returns, but overall, if you look at it from a structural level, probably not as much as is if you work in European markets or the US market.
So with that said, how can investors be incentivized to make more impact investments or some impact investment?
I think it's a mix of few things. And first of all is really, I think, again, for an investor to really think of, okay, how important impact is for them, and then really also apply that to where they want to invest in terms of the kind of spectrum that I just described. Are they fine with investing then in climate tech VCs that probably can give them similar returns, or is the money that they have, is it a part of their portfolio where they really think, okay, I really, with this money, with, I don't know, 10, 20%, I really want to be impact first. And then I think it's about selecting good players that they then think are doing this in a very systematic, professional way, that harness the power of commercial entrepreneurial models as much as possible, and then you have to select those. So I think it's for the investor, it's really about how important is the impact and how much of my portfolio do I want to put into that sector.
So no, at the end, okay, now that you've decided to invest and things are rolling, at the end of the day, how do you measure the social impact, and what are the key metrics?
So we have our own methodology. It's called the elea impact measurement methodology. That at the core of it really looks at a few factors, and the first one is obviously the volume of people reached. So like how many people actually work with this company then as a client. Again, it doesn't have to be like in a combination with how intense is the change. So that's obviously important. You cannot say that just because a solution reaches millions of people, if it's very incremental, then obviously it's not the same as if you give someone a job, which is very much more life changing. That we try to balance that to make a comparison across our portfolio. So we take those two factors. We have also a few others, like looking how much influence does it have at the ecosystem, for instance, also looking at the climate, and then overall we basically have an internal metric, which is the points that we then get, that we try to compare then to make sure that the decisions that we make way up against each other in terms of not only how many people they reach, but also how intense it actually is and how much other externalities it actually creates. And that's what we do since many years. So we have a quite a broad basis there, and that gives us confidence that we can steer our investment decisions in the right way.
So, we've talked about a lot of how impact investment can help, change lives. But what about the market side? How much of an impact does this type of investment have so far on that market?
I mean, I think we all know that the impact side is growing. So there's more and more people who want to do more in this direction, want to allocate more or all of their money into impact-minded investments. I think the overall market, I don't know, like the super latest numbers, but I think from 2020, I looked at a study recently where it said that the whole market is around $600 billion to $2.3 trillion large. Again, it's a huge spread, so that really depends on what you count as impact money. But I think overall, by now, it's a significant part of the money. I think, as I said, ESG investing is very standard. And then really how far down you want to go into the impact intensity is up to the preference of people. And I think that sector is also growing, but obviously it will always only be a smaller part of the whole investment spectrum.
So now that if you talk about, you've given us some examples actually at the beginning of our talk about what you've been doing, but in terms of the global sense, about what's been happening around the world, can you give us some cool case studies or so things that you think that are, stand out in terms of impact investing?
I could do that. I was actually thinking whether now we could also talk about
Recalled?
Recult.
Yeah, sure.
Since I think it's based in Thailand, but I think it's actually a great example also for having a global relevance. So the venture is Thai based, but I'm not sure that everyone knows it. So I will try to explain it briefly. They basically work in agriculture. So they work with now over 750,000 farmers, both in Thailand and also in Pakistan. So they're operational in both countries. And with those 750,000 farmers, they provide them they provide them important information on the one hand, actual or like up-to-date weather information, how to plant, like tips on how to plant things, when to apply fertilizer, what to do if this problem comes up. So like a real important library of knowledge. Plus they connect the farmers then also to the market side. So they give them information about market prices, plus give them access to other services around credit and other important services in the agricultural value chain. And 750,000 farmers is quite a large number. So they are able to also then leverage this and all the data that they have to then build an ecosystem of interested players around that. So now banks are obviously interested to know more about farmers that they might want to work with. And that's just one example what they then are able to integrate stakeholders that are in the value chain to then be part of the platform and offer their service through their solution. And yeah, I think that's just a great example again of how you on the one hand can provide an immediate value add to the farmers with all that information that really changes how they actually like when they harvest, or also even when they actually start and when they then also plant. Plus it provides a great bridge to the larger corporate sector around banks, around mills, around input providers that are then able to know more about those farmers and also reach farmers in more rural areas, in like smaller farmers that would not have any access to banks beforehand. And obviously you can build a business model around all of that. That's why we think it actually makes sense for us as an investment. Yeah, and I think it's growing. There's many more countries where that solution could actually be transferred in, and that's why I also think it has a very global relevance. And the problems in the agricultural sector for smallholder farmers are to some extent quite similar around well, everywhere. Obviously they're a bit localized, but still I think yeah,
It can be used
as
like an example for other countries as well.
Yes.
Right.
Well,
it's interesting. It's in
as an
Pakistan
example,
and
and
Thailand
also
as well, right?
as an expansion in the future, maybe. But yeah, definitely also as an example. Yeah.
So, with all that said, I mean, what is your advice then for investors or company, seeking to do or receive impact investments?
Yep. So if you're obviously an impact focused or like impact, an impactful company, I think it's really, first of all, you have to be very clear why you're doing it and how your model does it. So in terms of, are you basically doing impact in addition to you? So let's say you have a commercial model and then you add impact by giving donations on the side versus is your impact really part of your business model? And if you make $1 more of revenue, are you also gaining more impact automatically. And I think if you have that very clear, then you also know like what sort of funding you can actually look for, and how basically whether there's a trade-off between the impact side and the business side. If there's a trade-off, then probably you would need other funding, like more concessionary grant funding to keep the trade-off alive, versus if you have the impact side very strongly baked into your business model, then you can work strongly with organizations like us, for instance, that are patient but very much believe in the entrepreneurial model. So that I think is one thing. Really make sure that you have your model right, that there is some sort of proof. Then there also then second, know whom do you want to work with on the funding side. As in, are you looking for more patient capital? Are you looking for more the VC side? And I think the third thing is really more about the time that we're in now, that funding obviously is more challenging now. And I think that's the same for whether you're an impact company or a regular commercial company. So make sure that whatever funds you have now, have you raised maybe just recently, make sure that it lasts as long as possible. So also try to adjust a bit more on the revenue side to things that actually make you money. It's not about growth at all costs anymore. And then if you're funding, then yes, you have probably to think of, okay, what conditions can I accept? What conditions do I want to accept? And maybe you have to take something that's a bit less favorable than it was maybe a year ago.
That's interesting. Yeah, that's interesting that you're saying that. And I think it's very useful at this time, as we come towards the end of 2022. Now, what do you think would be the future trends of impact investments for the upcoming year of 2023?
Yep. I think a few things on the more general global side is really what I said before. Also 2023, I think, is still not going to be money is still going to become is still going to stay more challenging than it has been 2 years ago. And I think that's still where I think you just have to adjust your business model potentially a bit. That yes, profits are important, so the trend has to be like companies that monetize their user base, that are able to also generate cash flow. So that I think is one important thing, which is just from the trend that we will see. I think that's still, at least in 2023, it's gonna be around for a while. I don't think it's gonna be a challenge for all times, but try to stretch your money as much as possible. And I think the other trends are really, I think the impact side will continue to actually grow. There's more and more people wanting to be in this space. There's more and more funders wanting to be in this space. There's also more and more talent wanting to be in this space. So for instance, one thing that we clearly see is when we hire, we get a lot of great applications, which is great that we see also that young people really want to be in this space. And that's also where I would say, like, if you have a solution or a venture that really is strong both on the market side and the impact side, you will actually get through this phase. And I think it's also a time when just markets select the stronger players, and those that are around then will be even stronger for the period than that's after. I think if I can talk to Thailand as well briefly, because I've actually, obviously with the exposure to the Thai company that we're working in, but we recently also had a colleague who looked into Thailand as a country, whether we also have some more or like other investment opportunities in the moment there, which we call scouting tours, when people actually go there, meet a lot of players in the ecosystem. And I think for Thailand, it's also clear that there is a trend to more impact capital, but it's actually quite early still, right now. So what we found, that the whole ecosystem is early. There is little patient to impact first capital in the moment. So we actually, all the entrepreneurs that we talked to, they were all like, they all shared with us that it's an exception that people don't ask for terms and the valuation right away. And that also reflects from the stage that the whole industry, the social entrepreneurship space is quite early. It's maybe more development in, like, let's say 5-ish years. There is first players, like ecosystem players, like for instance the Social Entrepreneurship Thailand network, also Yunus Thailand, and also the government, I think, gets involved a bit more with that. Ventures can register as social ventures, which gives them certain tax benefits, but also comes with its restrictions. But I think developments like this, that there's more and more players, that the market will develop also on the impact side, also in Thailand, I think will continue actually. So I think, I mean, it's been going on for the last 5-ish years or more. So I think in 2-3 years we will also be there on a different space. And yeah, also something that we will continue to actually look into.
Well, yeah, I think thank you for being very straightforward. I think this is a great analysis of what's been going on here in Thailand and maybe neighboring countries. But yeah, but it is a breath of fresh air to hear from you, for you to explain your world in terms of impact investment with us today on our episode. I'm sure a lot of listeners want to know more, and if they do, you can always check out our Techsauce website and also the elea website as well. You have a great website there. And, we look forward to hearing from you more. Thank you so much, Gerald.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
Okay. And this has been yet another episode of Techsauce Global Podcast. Until we meet next time, bye-bye.
Techsauce, sparking innovative thoughts.